What if I told you that the ending of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the one we all know, the one that feels as inevitable as the Hogwarts Express leaving platform 9 3/4, wasn't the only way things could have gone? That there's a whole world of possibilities where one tiny decision, one twist of fate could have sent the story spiraling in a completely different direction? Think about it. The entire first book, no, the entire saga, hinges on that final confrontation in the underground chambers beneath Hogwarts. Harry faces Quirrell, outsmarts Voldemort, and walks away clutching the Philosopher's Stone, ensuring it's destroyed. Classic hero's journey, right? But what if it wasn't? What if, in another version of reality, things played out just a little differently? You see, the beauty of Harry Potter isn't just in the story we got, it's in the stories we could have gotten, the moments where fate balanced on a knife's edge, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. An alternate ending to the Philosopher's Stone that flips everything on its head. Imagine this. Harry reaches the Mirror of Erised, just like before, but this time, when Quirrell, or rather Voldemort, demands the stone, Harry doesn't just resist, he bargains. What if he saw an opportunity in that moment, not just to stop Voldemort, but to manipulate him, to play the long game right from the start? Or, here's another twist, what if the stone wasn't destroyed? What if Dumbledore's plan wasn't as foolproof as we thought, and the stone fell into the wrong hands after all? How would that change Harry's future? Would Voldemort have returned years earlier? Would Snape have stepped in? Would Harry have been forced to make an impossible choice? This isn't just fan fiction, this is a deep dive into the what-ifs that J.K. Rowling herself might have considered before settling on the ending we know. Because every great story has turning points, moments where the smallest change could rewrite everything. And Philosopher's Stone? It's packed with them. So let's ask the big question. What if the ending wasn't quite so neat? What if Harry's first victory wasn't so clean-cut? What if the darkness lurking in the corners of the wizarding world crept in a little sooner? Stick around, because we're about to rewrite history, one magical twist at a time. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at that final scene the same way again. But before we jump into the what-ifs, let's take a quick step back. Because to really understand how things could have gone differently, we need to remember how they did. Okay, let's rewind to the ending we all know, the one that's etched into our brains like the words on the Marauder's map. Harry, Hermione, and Ron have just survived a gauntlet of magical traps, each more dangerous than the last. Fluffy? Check. Devil's Snare? Check. Flying keys, life-sized wizard's chess, heck, even a logic puzzle straight out of a Snape pop quiz. And where does it all lead? To that eerie, torchlit chamber where the Mirror of Erised waits, and where Quirrell, or rather the thing living on the back of his head, is already one step ahead. Now, here's the thing about this scene. On the surface, it feels inevitable, like this was always how it was meant to go. Harry looks into the mirror, wants the stone but doesn't want to use it, and boom, it drops into his pocket. Quirrell freaks out, tries to grab him, and ouch, turns out Voldemort's parasite body can't handle the power of a mother's love burning through Harry's skin. Harry passes out, wakes up in the hospital wing, and Dumbledore delivers the big reveal. The stone's been destroyed, Voldemort's fled again, and our golden trio gets rewarded for their bravery with a cool 170 house points. Roll credits, right? But let's peel that back for a second, because when you really look at it, this ending isn't just tidy, it's suspiciously tidy, almost like Dumbledore planned every single detail. And that's the first clue that things could have gone very differently. Take the Mirror of Erised for starters. It doesn't just give Harry the stone, it gives it to him because he doesn't intend to use it. That's the whole trick. But what if Harry had wanted it, even for a second? What if in that moment he'd thought, wait, this could bring my parents back? Would the mirror have played along, or would it have locked him out, leaving Quirrell and Voldemort to claim the prize? And then there's Quirrell himself. The guy's basically a walking contradiction, a nervous, stuttering pawn with the most dangerous dark wizard of all time grafted to his skull. But here's what's wild. Voldemort could have won right then and there if he'd just not touched Harry, if he'd used magic instead of going straight for a chokehold. Would Lily's protection have even mattered? Or was this whole showdown rigged from the start? Which brings us to Dumbledore. Oh, Dumbledore, the man's chess master routine here is legendary. He knew Voldemort would go after the stone, he knew Harry would get involved, and he definitely knew that the mirror was the ultimate failsafe. But here's the question, was that really the best plan? Because if anything had gone wrong, if Harry had been a second slower, if Quirrell had been a bit smarter, Voldemort would have strolled out of there with immortality in his pocket, and Dumbledore just let it play out. That's the thing about the original ending. It works, but only because every piece falls exactly where it's supposed to. Harry's purity, Quirrell's incompetence, Dumbledore's foresight, it all clicks together like a perfect spell, but magic isn't that predictable, and history isn't that kind. So what happens when we tweak just one of those pieces? What if Harry wasn't so selfless in front of the mirror? What if Quirrell wasn't so easily outsmarted? What if, and here's the real kicker, Dumbledore's plan wasn't as foolproof as he thought? Well, that's where things get interesting. All right, let's rewrite history. Picture this. Harry stumbles into that shadowy chamber, heart pounding, wand clutched in his sweaty palm, just like before. Quirrell's there. Voldemort's hissing from the back of his head, and the Mirror of Erised looms like a silent judge. But this time, Harry doesn't just stand there. This time, he thinks, because here's the thing. Harry's brave, sure, but he's also 11. And 11-year-olds facing down the boogeyman of the wizarding world, they don't always make the noble choice. Sometimes they make the smart one. So instead of playing Dumbledore's game, Harry plays his own. He looks into the mirror, sees the stone materialize in his pocket, but then he hesitates. What if he doesn't just yank it out? What if he uses it? Not for himself, no, but as leverage. I have it, Harry says, voice steadier than he feels. But if you touch me, it crumbles to dust. You need me alive to get it. And just like that, click, the game changes. Voldemort's not used to being negotiated with, especially not by a child. But Harry's got two things Voldemort desperately wants, the stone and himself. A living, breathing Horcrux, standing right there. So when Harry says, let my friends go, swear it, or I drop the stone into the flames right now, what's Voldemort gonna do, refuse? This is where things get messy, because Quirrell's still a factor, an unstable, possessed wild card. Maybe he panics, maybe he lunges, but Harry's quicker this time. He dodges, and in the scuffle, the stone does fall, not into fire, but into the shadows, rolling away where neither of them can reach it. Voldemort screams in fury. Quirrell's body starts to crumble from the strain of housing him, and Harry runs, not to safety, no, to Dumbledore. But when he bursts into the headmaster's office, gasping out the story, Dumbledore's face does something unreadable. You bargained with him, Dumbledore says slowly, not angry, not impressed, just calculating. And that's the twist, because now the stone isn't destroyed. It's lost somewhere in the bowels of Hogwarts where even the elves can't find it. Voldemort's still out there, but now he's obsessed, not just with immortality, but with Harry Potter, the kid who outsmarted him. Dumbledore's chessboard shattered. Because Harry didn't follow the script, he improvised, and that changes everything. Now, fast forward, the school year ends, but the danger doesn't. Without the stone's destruction as a clear victory, the wizarding world's still uneasy. Rumors swirl. The Daily Prophet starts asking questions. Why was a first year facing a Dark Lord alone? What's Dumbledore hiding? And Harry? He's not the boy who lived anymore. He's the boy who bargained, the one who looked Voldemort in the eye, face, and negotiated. That's not just bravery, that's strategy, and it makes people nervous. But here's the real kicker. Dumbledore's not the only one watching Harry now. The Ministry's interested. So are the Death Eaters, still lurking in the shadows. And Snape? Oh, Snape's furious. Because if Harry's clever enough to play games with the Dark Lord, what else is he capable of? This Harry doesn't get a neat ending. He gets a beginning of something darker, sharper, where every choice has teeth. And the worst part, he doesn't even know the rules yet. But that's the thing about bargains. Once you make one, you can't unmake it. So what happens when Voldemort comes back, and this time he's not just after Harry's life? What happens when he wants payback? Well, That's a story for another ending. Let's flip the script entirely. This time when Harry steps into that chamber, he doesn't outsmart Quirrell. He doesn't bargain. He loses. Not in the way you'd expect, though. No dramatic last stand, no heroic sacrifice. Just a moment of hesitation. A split-second delay when his fingers brush the stone in his pocket, and he thinks, really thinks, about what it could do. What if I could bring them back? And that's all it takes. Quirrell's hand clamps down on his wrist, yanking him close. The pain is instant, white-hot, searing, but it's not just his scar burning this time. It's the stone, glowing red-hot in his grip, reacting to the proximity of Voldemort's soul. And then it cracks. A hairline fracture, barely visible. But the second that happens, the entire chamber shudders. The mirror's surface ripples like water. The torches flicker and die, and Quirrell screams because the stone isn't just a tool for immortality anymore. It's alive and it's hungry. Here's the twist. The Philosopher's Stone was never meant to be used by someone like Voldemort. Nicholas Flamel didn't just make it, he bound it. To dark magic, numbered to desire. And Voldemort's desire, raw, endless, selfish, is the perfect kindling. The stone explodes. Not in fire, not in light, but in something far worse. Possibility. A shockwave of magic tears through the room, and suddenly Harry's not just seeing Quirrell's face, he's seeing faces, dozens of them, flickering in the shards of the broken mirror, his parents, older versions of himself, a version where he's holding the stone high, laughing with power, another where he's nothing but a husk, drained dry by its magic, and Voldemort, he's trapped. Not banished, not fleeing, stuck in the in-between, his wraith form torn apart by the stone's backlash. He's not gone, he's scattered. When Dumbledore arrives, he finds Harry kneeling in the wreckage, unharmed but changed. The stone is dust, Quirrell is gone, not dead, erased, as if he never existed at all. And Harry, he doesn't remember what happened, not clearly, just flashes, whispers, the feeling of something old and hungry brushing against his mind before it vanished. Dumbledore looks at him differently after that, not with pride, with dread, because he knows what the stone really was, not just a tool, a test. And Harry, he failed. Fast forward. The school year ends, but nothing's the same. Flamel dies within weeks, not because the stone's destruction killed him, but because he chooses to. Almost like he knew this would happen. The Daily Prophet spins wild theories. Hogwarts disaster, dark magic, or Dumbledore's folly. Ron and Hermione stick by Harry, but they're terrified of whatever happened in that chamber. And Snape watches Harry like he's a ticking bomb. Because here's the truth. The stone's magic didn't just vanish. It lingered. And some of it went into Harry. Now when he sleeps, he dreams in alchemy. Wakes up with equations scrawled on his arms in ink that wasn't there the night before. Sometimes his scar doesn't burn, it sings. And the worst part, Voldemort's voice is gone from his dreams, not because he's dead, because he's waiting. This isn't the story of a boy who defeated a Dark Lord. It's the story of a boy who unmade one and doesn't know what he's unleashed in the process. So what happens when the stone's magic wakes up? What happens when Voldemort's fragments start to coalesce? Well, that's a horror story even Dumbledore isn't ready for. Let's take a step back from spells and stone fragments for a moment. Because what we're really talking about here isn't just alternative endings, it's alternative Harrys. Two roads diverged in a dark chamber, and each path reshapes not just the story, but the very meaning behind it. Start with the first alternate ending, the bargain. On the surface, it's a classic Faustian twist, a boy trading words with the devil. But here's the fascinating part. Harry isn't trading his soul. He's trading something far more dangerous, his moral certainty. The original Harry wins because he's pure of heart, because he wants the stone only to protect it. But bargain Harry, he weaponizes desire itself, and that changes everything. This version taps into a brutal psychological truth. Negotiation is a form of power, especially for the powerless. Think about real-world hostage situations, political standoffs, when the weak suddenly flip the script by making themselves necessary. But there's always a cost. Every time Harry outmaneuvers Voldemort in this timeline, he becomes a little more like him, not in cruelty, but in calculation. It's Machiavelli's "the ends justify the means," crashing headfirst into childhood innocence. And that raises an uncomfortable question. Is the Harry who walks away from that chamber still the hero? Or has he just become a different kind of player in Dumbledore's game? Now contrast that with the second ending, The Stone's Curse. This isn't about choice at all, it's about consequence. The original story teaches us that love conquers all, but this version whispers something darker. Magic has rules and breaking them has teeth. It's alchemy meets quantum physics. The observer effect gone horribly wrong. By merely considering using the stone, Harry alters its fundamental nature. This isn't fantasy, it's philosophy. The stone becomes a metaphor for nuclear energy, AI, any transformative power humanity isn't ready to wield responsibly. Flamel's creation was stable because his intentions were pure, but Voldemort's hunger destabilizes it at the atomic level. And Harry, he's the unwitting catalyst, the child who accidentally presses the big red button because no one thought to explain the safeguards. Which brings us to the mirror at the heart of all this, literally. The Mirror of Erised isn't just a plot device, it's the ultimate Rorschach test. In the original, Harry sees family. In the bargain ending, he sees leverage. In the curse ending, he sees potential. Same mirror, different boys. And that's the terrifying beauty of these what-ifs. They prove Harry was never destined to be just one thing. Dumbledore's original plan relied on Harry being predictably selfless, but human nature isn't predictable. Neuroscience shows our brains aren't fully equipped for long-term consequence assessment until our mid-20s. So an 11-year-old facing cosmic power, statistically he should have messed up. The fact that he doesn't in the original isn't realism, it's myth-making. And this is where ethics crash headfirst into narrative. The original ending reassures us that goodness prevails if we stay pure of heart. But the alternatives, they're messy, they're human. They force us to ask, is true heroism about never stumbling, or about how we navigate the fall? In a bargain, Harry becomes a political creature navigating shades of gray. The cursed Harry becomes a walking cautionary tale about power's collateral damage. Both are arguably more real than the saintly original, but are they better? That depends on whether you believe stories should inspire or reflect. Perhaps the most unsettling revelation is how both alternate endings undermine Dumbledore's godlike foresight. His original plan works through a series of miraculous coincidences, but these what-ifs expose the staggering arrogance of that approach. It's the trolley problem on a cosmic scale. He's willing to risk Harry becoming a bargaining chip or a magical Chernobyl because he believes that particular boy will always choose right. So here's the ultimate question these endings force us to confront. Is the wizarding world better served by a fairy tale or by the messy truth? Would we rather see Harry as the shining champion or as the boy who sometimes fails, sometimes compromises, but keeps fighting anyway? The answer might just determine what kind of stories and what kind of heroes we really need. But before we wrap this up, there's one last thread to pull, because all these endings, original and alternate, share one unspoken assumption, that the Philosopher's Stone was Flamel's greatest creation. What if we've been wrong about that all along? So here we are. We've walked through mirrors, danced with dark magic, and turned the Potterverse inside out, all to answer one deceptively simple question: what if? But now, as the pensive runs dry and the last scraps of parchment flutter to the floor, I've got to ask you, which version of Harry's story really stays with you? Is it the classic fairy tale ending where good triumphs because it must? The gritty negotiation that turns our boy hero into a strategic survivor? Or the cosmic horror twist where magic itself rebels against being weaponized? Here's the funny thing. Your answer says as much about you as it does about Harry. Because how we rewrite stories reveals what we secretly believe about the world. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, hold on, what about a fourth option? And to that I say, yes, absolutely. That's where you come in. This isn't just my exploration, it's ours. So hit pause right now. Well, maybe after this sentence, and drop your wildest alternate ending in the comments. What if Neville had been the one facing Quirrell? What if the stone wanted to be found? What if, and this one's spicy, Dumbledore was the real villain all along? The quill's in your hand now, and while you're down there in the comments, take half a second to smash that like button, not for me, but for the algorithm overlord, so more fellow Potterheads can join this thought experiment. Subscribing? That's how you make sure you're first in line when we tear apart Chamber of Secrets next month. Spoiler, that basilisk had way more potential. Before I go, one last thought. The magic of Harry Potter was never just in the story J.K. Rowling wrote. It's in the stories she left unwritten, the gaps where our imaginations set up shop. Every time we debate an alternate ending, every theory we spin, we're not just fans. We're modern-day wand makers, twisting possibilities into something new. So tell me, what's your philosopher's stone, the one idea that could alter this story beyond recognition? The comment section is your Mirror of Erised. Show me what you see.